With great mojo comes great responsibility. Mojo 50.
And crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Americanuck Radio. News, opinion, and a little irreverence from both sides of the 49th parallel. This is Americanuck Radio with Mike Phillip.
Welcome back to Americanuck Radio. It's a beautiful day. It's there's a good layer of snow on the ground already, and it's getting cold way too early. It's probably that climate change thing you've all been hearing about. And I know I'm sick of hearing that phrase, that one, and trans and racist. Tired of it all, I tell you. I really am. Praise God. It's you know, I'm really happy with the direction that the show has taken in the last little while because, like I've said on the show before, I am somebody that got so completely and thoroughly tired of politics that I liken it to a man that has had too much to eat and you can't look at food anymore. That being said, I'm not opposed to going there, and so we're going to do that today. We're going to talk a little bit about the situation in Alberta here with Danielle Smith. I'm hearing a lot of Americans that are all of a sudden experts on what's happening in Alberta. And not only that, but a certain wealthy individual that decorates himself with tattoos like a Christmas tree. And as far as I can tell, spends a lot of time in the gym and a tanning salon getting his teeth whitened. All of a sudden, he's an expert on all things Alberta and doesn't really know what he's talking about. I, on the other hand, have been at the, and not puffing myself up here, but I'm somebody that's been in the middle of the independence movement here for, over 30 years. And so I'm very familiar with it. I'm also familiar with Danielle Smith's career in politics before she went into talk radio. And I do like what I'm seeing. Let's say that. There are a few drawbacks, though. We'll get into that on the show today. But yeah, it's weird seeing a lot of Americans that are all of a sudden very interested in Alberta when previously they wouldn't have been able to find it on a map, to be quite honest with you. No offense if you're an ignorant American. Hour 2, I plan on getting into the Word of God today. We'll see what happens. If things are rolling really good with Greg freaking Meakin, we might just keep things light with Dueling-Citizens today. I don't know. I made a plan yesterday, and it went into something else completely different. And I had people reaching out to me after the show saying that they were blessed big by what we did on Americanuck Radio yesterday. And Greg Meakin is over in the green room of Americanuck Radio. And so let's bring him in here before he has too much to drink and eats too much of the food that the Teamsters put out in the green room and gets all logy and can't think straight.
Author Greg Meakin nails it. The border catastrophe, gas prices, and runaway inflation, the education mess. Greg sorts it all out and offers Greg's solutions. Now presenting Dueling-Citizens with Greg Meakin.
Dueling-Citizens with Greg Meakin is brought to you by Americanuckradio.com. Go there and make a donation, buy some supplements, get yourself an Alberta USA hat, or just hang out. I don't know. By the way, if you want to have access to my brilliant pearls of wisdom when the show is not on and meet some really fantastic people from all over North America, go and join up with the Americanuck Radio Rebooted chat room, which is on the censorship-free social media platform MeWe. Yeah, I know it's a stupid name, but I actually kind of like it there because it's not Facebook or Twitter. Greg freaking Meakin, welcome back to Americanuck Radio, buddy.
Oh, Mike, is it another Friday with you? I can't even listen to your intros without laughing, man. You should be in radio or something. You should do radio, Mike.
Yeah,
I always would. I always would like, as a side note to you, I'd always like Fridays to be your special day. I know you've been withdrawing from politics, especially this last year or two, especially since your church was born gracefully. That was wonderful. But I'd like you to consider Dueling-Citizens as kind of, the 12-step programs that, maybe a few of me went through years ago. I would like this to be your 13th step. Just every Friday, take an hour and talk politics, Mike. Just getting over your politics withdrawal the slow way. You know what I mean?
Okay, we can do that. Let's get into this thing with Danielle Smith, because like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm hearing a whole lot of talk about Alberta from people that don't get it. They don't understand the situation here. And by the way, Danielle Smith, that a lot of people are calling the DeSantis of Canada right now. Did I ever tell you that I was in communication with her when she walked away from her AM radio gig after she got out of politics, and she was actually going to be a guest on Americanuck Radio, and now she's just too big for us. She doesn't have time for us little peons out here in broadcast land, so that's okay. Good on her, and I hope she's successful. What are your thoughts? Have you talked to anybody about this situation down there? With what's happening in Canada, specifically with Alberta, Greg, and then I want to get into some of my thoughts on her personally.
Oh, sure. I think I mentioned on the pre-show that I'm kind of force-fed Canadian politics, whether I ask for it or not, because I think 3 out of 4, seriously, of my followers and folks on Facebook are Canadians, namely from Alberta. So I've been personally fascinated with just the Danielle Smith rollout, if you will. And my bottom line in that, the jury is still out for Greg, okay? Mike, the jury is out. I understand that I see this as kind of a symbolic putting someone's foot down to Ottawa. I indeed hope everything works out the way things look like they might. But let me just say the jury's still out. I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to Canadian politics, Mike.
Yeah, that's where I am too. I mean, look, if she's able to do what she said so far, and what I definitely like, I will say this, is that she's talking about reimbursing people for the pay that they lost during the lockdowns. Emergency first responders, people like that, doctors, nurses, just people in general that lost their jobs, but. This is such a big ball of wax here, because if you're going to open up that door, the lawsuits that could come in through this, like I mentioned before, I had incidences where I was almost physically assaulted just for walking into a business without a mask on. And I could easily myself, I have a track record of following up with this on TD Waterhouse Bank, and if the Human Rights Code has changed, you could be actually looking at a massive transfer of wealth here.
I'll tell you what, you're bringing up a can of worms, like you say, Mike. If I had a message for Danielle Steele, right? Danielle Steele, how don't you love that Freudian slip there? For Danielle Smith, I'd really ask her 2 questions. You know me, Mike, I get down to simple questions, right? Number one, if let's just say hypothetically, if 60% or more of Alberta folks, registered voters, vote for Alberta 51 to become the 51st state, will she jump on board? Yes or no? Yes or no? Secondly, really is kind of, and this is my thought. I do all my Greg's list with solutions to stuff, and I've really thought about these firings. And people losing their jobs because of their vax status. Obviously, this is the elephant in the room, Mike. This is the elephant in the room. I went through these. I really watched it closely, and there were a ton down here in the States. As you know, there were military guys being let go, Mike. There were people that were fired, not even allowing exemptions. I'm saying, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Someone with a 20, 30-year career, you're going to fire him? out of some type of moral conduct, moral honor, because they won't get vaccinated against their will. So I'm saying proactively, if Ms. Smith gets this message, it's this. I would, in order to avoid, or at least proactively mitigate all the litigation that's going to be lined up at the courthouse door, right, Mike? It's going to be lined up.
Yep.
Just do a list of everybody who lost their job or everybody who was fired or laid off, everyone. Do a list of them.
Or not even that, just had basic human rights violated, like walking into a grocery store.
Sure. And we're talking businesses that had to close. You do a mitigation package right up front. Government's always ready to spend these billions and trillions on packages, right? On the taxpayers' dole. So let's do a mitigation package. Anyone who is fired or let go or lost a business, whatever, you're entitled to, number one, all of your 100% of your past income, your lost income. Okay. Number two, 100% of all your lost benefits, if any.
Plus damages.
Here you go. Punitive. It's called punitive in the United States, Mike. And here we go. And right off the bat, and I'm saying, I watched this. I'm really you got me passionate so early here on Friday, Mike, but the tragedy that we saw, especially these people losing their jobs, these military guys, and businesses that closed, it was tragic. Let's do a package. What, $50,000 a piece, $100,000 a piece, whatever. Let's do a mitigation dollar amount. Write them a check. You can write everybody else a check in the world right now, Mike. Write them a check, and you'll avoid a whole bunch of legal fees and mitigation, because it is the most barbaric violation of constitutional rights that I've seen, both in the United States and in Canada. That was awful, and I wish we didn't have to wait 2 to 3 years every time to listen to what the truth was. You know, like the convoy hearings right now, Mike. You got me going already. We're off to the races.
The convoy hearings, yeah, there's a few things I want to say about that, too. I actually have a friend who's sitting in jail over all that right now.
Jeremy?
But we'll get to that after this. Let's talk about this thing with Danielle Smith. Danielle Smith actually was part of what was called the Wild Rose Party here in Alberta. Conservatives were in power for well over 40 years, like we're talking 43 years. They got fat, lazy, and entitled, and under people that were under the conservative banner, this whole globalism thing kept moving forward. What they would do is pay lip service to Alberta conservative redneck types like myself. But the agenda kept moving forward, right? And going back to Ralph Klein, people say, bring back King Ralph. He was an old premier of Alberta that was very popular here, but actually under him, this whole thing moved forward, right? And it was just creeping forward the whole time, no matter if you were a conservative or a liberal. It was faster in liberal places. So Danielle Smith was with this Wild Rose Party because people were fed up with the conservatives here. And then she, through a series of events, actually crossed the floor and rejoined the Conservative Party. So there was a lot of people that were very angry with her, that were of the same mindset that Alberta needs a better deal within Confederation, or just to cut ties with Canada completely, which is where I was at the time. Like, I remember when I was in high school and I lived in Alberta, they were having meetings of this Buffalo Party that was sending delegations to Ottawa to speak to Parliament and talk about getting a better deal within Confederation, which, as we know, is probably never going to happen. Danielle Smith went into a career in talk radio, where I remember, and say what you want about her, there are some things that I definitely disagree. She's very down with this whole LGBT trans kids in the schools, gay straight alliances, locked rooms in the school where gay kids can get together and talk with the door locked and parents aren't allowed to know about it. I guess she was down with that. That being said, the biggest drawback with this thing with Danielle Smith, I think, Greg, and this is just me, is number one, she gave an oath to King Charles, the descendant of Vlad the Impaler and Dracula. And the Premier of Quebec did not make any kind of a vow or oath to the the king of the British over there. And if you're listening, Andrew, I didn't say Englishman. I said British. Apparently, they're the bad guys. I didn't know about that. I had an Englishman very angry at me for calling them British the other day. Thanks for letting me know, Andrew. But, see, that's the thing. You're still in Confederation, and the way that Canada is set up, the United States, the balance of power is actually set up for the states to have them. You had that Roe v. Wade decision in the Supreme Court to give the power back to the states. Well, the feds should have never had that power to begin with, and the court should have never had the power to give it to them. That's why you had three separate branches of government: executive, judiciary, and Congress. Number two, the way it's set up in Canada, it's made for the feds to have power over the provinces. And so we're never going to get a good deal. So I think that the best thing that could happen out of this, and this is just me, okay? I think the best thing that could happen in this is that she fails. Let me explain, Greg. The best thing that could happen is that she fails in her mission, and it finally wakes up Albertans to the fact that there is no sovereignty savior that's going to get Alberta a better deal within Confederation, and it just ends up fracturing Canada completely. That's what I think is the best thing that could happen, because I just don't see anything good coming out of Ottawa. And that's the other thing with Poliver getting in. You know, people are talking about, oh, finally we'll get this conservative prime minister. No, it's still Canada. Do you understand?
Sure.
It's still Canada. And there's as many problems as there are with the United States, I know. But I think that the founding and philosophy of the United States and the deal that Alberta would have within the nation, within the republic, would be better than what it has within this confederation called Canada right now. Your thoughts on everything I just said, Greg?
No, I'll tell you what, Mike, that's as edgy as you get. That thought that the best thing for Alberta would be to see Daniel Smith's current agenda fail. It's a really edgy idea, and it's really worth a full campfire chat. What I will say, this is a huge issue, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, because people want it easy. They want to go back to the good old days when I didn't have to worry about it. And every time you get one of these people come along, they think they can sit back on their laurels. Now, and you've heard me before. You've heard me before, okay? Let's just say that everything seems perfect overnight, right? You're still going to need to get right with God. I'm still going to preach the way that I did in times past. And I'll tell you what else. These lockdowns that happened, Greg, that's the best thing that ever happened to me. And when things get difficult around you, that is a time when your faith is tested. That's when you find out what you're actually made of. Easy times do not. And so if she fails in this endeavor, hopefully it hardens people up and they get consecrated in their mind to actually do something different, Greg.
I mean, you're so right. This is so edgy, Mike. I've mentioned this on the air with you a number of times. Is my only rationale of watching this last 2 years, north and south of the border. Okay, it's been a grease fire, right? It's been a grease fire. We have never seen anything like this in my 63 years. And the only way I've been able to rationalize it is I think we all had to see these 2 years. We had to see a Joe Biden government because everything up to this point was just Orange man bad, Biden good, right? Everything be good and happy after Biden. That was the message. So it's almost like we had to see, because I'll tell you what, the last 2 years, in my mind, in my heart, especially those COVID lockdowns, reminded me of socialism, of 1970 martial law in Quebec, okay? So it's already happened before our eyes. You mentioned Danielle earlier. This is so huge, Mike. This is such a huge issue because I'm concerned. I'm concerned about my fellow Canadians and my new friends in Alberta. On Danielle's issue here, if you go memory lane to 2 weeks ago, episode 16 of Dueling-Citizens with Gordon Kessler. Yeah. One of the most, and you'll remember this, Mike, and I have a clip of this that I'm going to be putting on my YouTube channel. But one of the things that really made my jaw drop because Gordon gave a lot inside scoop.
Yeah, he
there
did.
to a lot of us. I felt like a fourth grader listening to him teach me about Alberta politics, Mike. But what he said, he addressed Danielle Smith head on as far as the issue, because number one, he was pulling for her, as all fellow Albertans should with any good Albertan cause, pulling for her. But however, what he mentioned specifically was if she fails at this, putting her foot down to Ottawa, okay, if she fails, and Gorey mentioned within like 2-3 months, Mike, 2-3 months, it will likely be the catalyst for the Alberta 51 USA movement, my friend, the catalyst. Because not only will citizens, but politicians at that point, if she fails at this and doesn't really create a more sovereign Alberta, and doesn't really create really an arm's length for a change of oppressive Ottawa. Come on, man. As an outside observer, it's a joke what Ottawa does to you folks out west. If she fails at this, I think that literally will be the launching pad for a 60% vote on the Alberta 51 yes referendum to become the 51st state of the United States of America, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally a pimp-prostitute relationship between Ottawa and Alberta. You like that, Alberta? You like taking your money to Ottawa and having them say, get back out and get me more money? And putting out a cigarette butt on your thigh and laughing in your face? Is that what you like?
And you talk to people all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Gord Kessler, to talk to him about it was fantastic because he was there. He knows what it's like sitting in the legislature as an avowed separatist, right? And
right.
This could go either way. I mean, we could end up with the Communist Party or the NDP getting in. We have an election coming up in just a little while here. So, I mean, what it is actually, it's a very good way of seeing where people are at and what Albertans actually deserve. Not all of them, but as a whole. Because, I mean, hey, man, you want it, you got it. Are they going to steal the election? Are they going to, you know what I mean? Is there going to be any funny business going on there? So, if Danielle Smith can do this and make it happen, number one, I'll be surprised. I will. Right. I'll be surprised because I don't think that it's going to work. Number two, I think that if she fails, then either way, good. And I hope that this wakes people up to the point where they just say, you know what, we can't do this anymore. Otherwise, there's just no future.
Mike, this just came to my heart. This just came in my mind. I go way, way back to 1960s and 1970s, Quebec and Canada. And I mean, personally, I was a Federalist. I was in love with Canada. I want to be clear with everybody listening to this today. In my mind, in my heart, there's two Canadas now, Mike. There's the old Canada and there's the new Canada. And at least rationalize it that way, that old Canada, because I'll tell you what, I loved being Canadian, and I love my Canadian friends. I love Alberta. Goodness gracious, I still love my Montreal hockey. We love Canada. Canada's a nice place. It's got incredible resources. It's got incredible, just wonderful national monuments. But the old Canada was where I call 1950s handshake world, where we at least trusted kind of each other. We believed our media. We had we had the Peter Jennings down here, or what have you, the Walter Cronkites or whatever, and you had your folks up there. We trusted to an extent, our law enforcement and our FBI. We relied on them, Mike. We relied on our FBI and our law enforcement and the RCMP to keep us safe. But New Canada is different, and I'll tell you what. I can't believe you pull this out in me every Friday, man. But I'll tell you what. In this last 2 years, Mike, and I mean this is heartfelt from a dueling citizen here, okay, an Americanuck. I've seen things in the last 2 years I never as a Canadian would have ever dreamed coming out of my prime minister. I'm telling you. I've never dreamed, and I don't think his father would have even been stupid enough to ban guns or stupid enough to close your border even longer than anyone recommended. or I never dreamed I would see bank accounts frozen, Mike, bank accounts frozen. And I watched Tamara Leaks this morning. I watched 30 minutes of her testimony. I can't believe the travesty that was wrought upon her. I've never seen anything like it. I don't think I would have seen that in my old Canada. And if this is what the new Canada is, Mike, Philip, if this is what new Canada is, every registered Alberta voter, when the referendum comes up, do you want to be the 51st state of the United States of America? Vote yes, and this nightmare will be over. Because I'll tell you what, the international community is laughing at Canada, Mike. They're laughing at your prime minister. In case anyone didn't know. So
I got to take exception with something that you just said. I seriously have to take exception with what you just said. Please stop calling that man my prime minister. I don't have one. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Greg.
Well, hallelujah. Well, there you go. And seriously, Mike, I'm serious. I don't want to sound, the old school boomer, but I was raised with JFK Democrats.
Right.
And where I see them today, they still exist. There's the Harold Fords down here. Check them out. There's the Joe Liebermans down here. You sit down, you have a conversation with them. You negotiate your position, because negotiation, you must give the person at the other side of the table a feeling of victory. You must.
Yep.
And then you decide it, and there's no personal hatred. There's, as I joke many times, Mike, you punch each other in the nose on the ice and go have a beer after the game.
Yep. Where
did this go? And wherever this went, I don't care. I don't care, because starting in 2022 and 2024 in the United States, there is not only going to be a red wave tsunami, there's going to be a cultural tsunami where we are finally going to be able to put our foot down as regular tax-paying folks like you, Mike, and me, Greg, and we can say, enough of this garbage. You've ruined our lives for the last 2-3 years. You've ruined our lives. And I would never say that or point a finger at government until seeing those lockdowns and those bank account freezes, Mike. So there you go. And I think that's my second soapbox of the day, Mike.
We got to go to our commercial break, Greg. But on the other hand, you could say actually that Alberta is acting more American than a lot of American states.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. There's the statement of the week right there, Mike.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, and in all fairness to the folks who are everyone's experts, like you talked about, bandwagon jumpers, experts, in all fairness, you're going to see more attention on the province, the beautiful province of Alberta, Mike, starting like literally this election, starting Tuesday, from Americans than you've ever seen before. And so there will be a lot of interest in Canada, especially Alberta 51. From the U.S. side, we started paying attention to folks down here during the convoy, and we're paying attention right now. And Arizona is behind you. Every person in Arizona that I know is behind Albertans, and Albertans become the 51st state, Mike.
Over to the commercial break. We'll be back with Dueling Citizens after this.
You want to wake up refreshed, like you slept on a cloud? Get yourself the very best in bedding supplies today. You deserve it. Go to MyPillow.com, and don't forget our very special promo code, MOJO50, for incredible savings.
At Romika Designs, we're more than just a laser engraving and specialty design company. Much more. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs, and if you can dream it, we can probably make it. We can custom laser cut and engrave on nearly all material. Great for one-of-a-kind gifts, home decor, business and specialty items, or personalized and logo designs created just for you or your company. Allow us to become your go-to gift and specialty project partner. Romika Designs can help make your ideas a reality. We're ready to help you design and create that special gift for any occasion or engrave your personal or business logo on just about any product. View our designs at romikadesigns.com or simply email us with your ideas. We specialize in custom design and would be honored to have the opportunity to discuss it with you. Call us at 817-400-4040, email info@romikadesigns.com, or visit us on the web at romikadesigns.com.
5 major food distributors have suffered explosions at food processing and storage facilities in the last few months. 20 more facilities have been destroyed by fires over the last 4 months. War in Ukraine drags on and holds the looming threat of nuclear escalation. U.S. inflation is officially reported above 8%. Mobs of people are whipped into frenzy by an increasingly unstable class of political elites. We live in interesting times. Political, economic, and financial collapse are all very real threats to our way of life. If the worst happens, make sure you and your loved ones are prepared with emergency food and supplies from preparewithmojo50.com. That's preparewithmojo50.com. Coffee lovers everywhere now have the opportunity to do their part to save the planet with Al Gore's lab-grown coffee substitute. We, here at Coffee Drinkers for Climate Change, believe this is a terrible idea. While man-bun-wearing, soy latte-loving poodle walkers everywhere are in love with the eco-friendly lab-grown sadness water, Coffee Drinkers for Climate Change want to see the sea levels rise, and for New York City to join the lost city of Atlantis, 12,000 leagues beneath the sea.
American Pride Roasters, historically great coffee. Every pot brewed is an eco-disaster 100 times greater than the Fukushima extinction level event. So order yours today and do your part to hasten the end of the planet. You don't want to live forever, do you? AmericanPrideRoasters.com. That's AmericanPrideRoasters.com.
How dare you?
We dare. We dare.
Flat Earth, the moon landing, JFK, 5G, Biden won the election. Hey, lovelies, does anyone have any new conspiracy theories? Because all the ones I know have come true. Join me, Ria Bow, here on Sunday Long Live Radio, live every Sunday of the year, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard, 10 a.m. UK, and 9 p.m. New South Wales. I'll see you Sunday.
Americanuck Radio.
I would say the world's most underrated radio shows. Americanuck Radio. This guy, Mike Phillip, is brilliant. I listen to him every day. Love your show. I really do. I'm a huge fan. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Americanuck Radio.
Well, God loves the outlaw, but he doesn't love the sin. Well, God loves the outlaw, but he doesn't love the sin. Just open up your heart to Jesus, and he'll surely let you in.
Americanuck Radio.
Well, God loves the outlaw, but he doesn't love the sin.
Welcome back to Americanuck Radio on Mojo 50 and WBN 324. We're here with, well, it's Friday edition. It's Dueling-Citizens with Greg Meakin. Greg freaking Meakin. Greg's working on a new book. He sent me a screenshot of the new cover, and it is fantastic. It was put together by his son, and I can tell that he's very proud of his son being a productive member of society and not running around wearing a dress and getting tested every 12 seconds and standing on the stickers at the grocery store. I'm guessing anyway. I don't know his son, but I'm sure that he doesn't run around wearing a dress and lipstick. My two boys also know to wear boys' clothes. And so, men's, I should say, men's. Greg, we're talking about this situation with the new Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, and it's so funny. I've watched these news cycles before, where all of a sudden everybody is on it and they're an expert on Alberta, and it's like, no, there's a little more to the situation that you don't understand, and they'll forget about it tomorrow. Don't worry. But this is something that it's difficult for me to really get my heart into anymore, because I did pour my heart into it for so long, and it didn't do anything for me, and I found myself getting angry. But that being said, I can talk about it and keep my cool these days. The other thing about it, too, is that Alberta is very, you talked about old Canada and new Canada. Let's talk about old Alberta and new Alberta, because it's a very similar situation with Alberta, actually, where, I live in a suburb of Edmonton, right? And I'm surrounded with rainbow flags everywhere I go, everywhere I look. When that Roe v. Wade decision came out, there's these lesbians that live down the block from me that they had gotten this brightly colored chalk and wrote in big letters on their driveway, "Keep your hands off of my uterus." And I was like, you're unhinged, crazy, and not very bright. And I don't know what it is that you think you're protesting, but you're actually being really gross. And I'm still going to offer them a Bible study. I'm going to do that. But you go around and you see all these yard signs for the NDP, and you can tell that it's a teacher. Teachers are a lot of times, teachers are the worst ones for this stuff. Like, and Gordon Kessler talked about Rachel Notley, the head of the NDP Communist Party of Canada here in Alberta. Her father, Grant Notley, how he got a hold of his playbook, and it was basically how to instill communism in Alberta. And I think that they've been largely successful. And so, there's a few of us left that still have our sanity, I guess. But and it comes down to this: when a society loses its protection because they have done everything to bring down God's wrath upon them, is there even a chance for a reprieve after a certain point, right? I mean, God flooded the earth in Noah's day. He caused Israel to be carried away into captivity by Babylon and the Medes and the Persians. He destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD. And I really think that we're coming towards a time like that again, Greg, to be quite honest with you. When you see the schools setting up rooms for gay kids to get alone and do what they do, society's in a bad, bad, bad place. And where were the churches this whole time, Greg?
Oh, Mike, touching on churches, you're touching on education. Gordon Kessler, of course, we talked about that at length. But education, this is probably closest to my heart, maybe than any subject. I think you know this. I was raised by teachers in Montreal I call it the noble days of public education. Once again, coming out of the 50s. My mom was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, and my great-grandmother was a teacher in Montreal. My grandmother in Dorval, Quebec, taught a one-room schoolhouse where all 7 grades were in the schoolhouse. And Mike, to this day, we're talking 60 years later here, I still hear from people who had my grandmother as a teacher. Yeah. And we're talking the 1940s and 50s. And this is what public education was all about. The teachers working with the parents and the students. The change, and the big change, speaking of old Canada and new Canada, is of course, these top-sided bureaucracies, school districts, school boards down here. You can make $300,000 as a school board executive. What are you talking about? I don't want to speak for my mom, my grandmother, or my great-grandmother, but I really believe they'd turn over in their graves if they saw the politicization of education, but also just the financial disaster that has been in order to pay for these massive salaries and bureaucracies, Mike.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, here's the other thing, too. Like, we're seeing it really in your face out in the open now. But, there's JR Freedom over in the chat. Hi, JW Freedom. Good to see you. So lucky God's love his animals. Praise Jesus. Yes, sir. But actually, this was actually coming down the pike. It was marching along a long time ago. I've talked about this before. I remember when I was a kid, and I walked into a Zellers. Remember Zellers? Anyway, I walked into a Zellers, and there was an album cover for a band called Poison. Look What the Cat Dragged In. And I thought they were a bunch of chicks. I really did. Kind of thought they were Well, I thought they were kind of hot actually at the time. But this cross-dressing men thing has been around for a long time. They just weren't admirals in the U.S. Navy. They weren't,
Sure.
you know what I mean? But like, we saw it creeping in a long time ago. And, you know, I've attended churches in the past where they made a big deal out of men dressing like men and women dressing like women, and a big divide between the two, and never the twain shall meet or be crossed. And so like you said, maybe we needed to go into this to see how bad it would actually get. And you know, maybe this is a moment where it's like, all right, I've put before you this day, life and death. If this is what you want, this is what you get. And
I really think
that's
it's
kind of
a
how
tipping
I see
point.
it, Greg.
I really think it's, and I pray it's a tipping point back, Mike. But we were talking about this, and we've talked about this a number of times on previous episodes. But you know, I profess that I'm a social liberal. And I always say I don't care what you do, I don't care who you marry, as long as you both love hockey, right? and I don't care what you do with your body, as long as the taxpayer doesn't have to pay for it. I mean, just that. And I think more people are kind of like that, but. Right now, I think it bothers everybody, you know, to see just the complete, not only moral decay, but the normalization of stuff like you're talking about. You know, and the whole transgender, it's just been a complete debacle as far as the debate. Because here's the deal. As Joe Biden says. The deal is that I always used to hear that no one wanted Christianity jammed down their throat. You know, remember the criticisms of Christians and evangelicals and Bible thumpers, and we don't mind people being Christian, we just don't want it jammed down our throat. Well, I want to tell you right now, as just kind of a silent majority from the old 60s era, I feel like there's a lot of stuff jammed right down my throat right now these days, Mike, including legislation from government that's oppressive, things like the NCAA allowing transgender athletes. Are you kidding me? So this stuff is being jammed down our throats, perceived or otherwise. And if I would pray for any change, it would be that we all just take a break a little bit, completely take a break, and really be more private in our lives and our culture, a little more discreet in our lives and our culture. And I think and I pray, I think things can change. I think that younger generations can come around. I'm analyzing Gen Z and the alphas a lot, and there are a lot of conservatives down there in the youngsters. But that said, we're talking old Canada, new Canada, including the States, old U.S. and new U.S. And I really, really hope and pray that there is a pushback to, I just call it 1950s handshake world, you know.
Let's get away from Alberta and Canada here. Let's talk about you're in Arizona. Let's get to Carrie Lake. I've seen some bites of Carrie Lake where I just busted out laughing out loud when she's talking to members of local media. And just calls them right out to their face, and it's you know what's amazing about them is that they go on like they haven't skipped a beat, like they pretend not to hear what she said, like she didn't just smoke them right in the head in front of everybody. But what are you seeing in Arizona? That you had this judge say that people can't guard ballot boxes for early mail-in voting and things like that. Have you seen anybody out guarding ballot boxes?
That stuff's usually nonsense, and it's dredged up by, late election panickers that they're going to lose. I've watched it firsthand. I've kind of like you, where you were reborn a little bit with your church and stuff. I was reborn a little bit during COVID. Then I started writing again, and I came out of retirement. Honestly, I tell everybody this. I came out of retirement a couple years ago to help get my state of Arizona back and get my country back. And in Arizona, I've been watching it firsthand. I went to a wonderful Charlie Kirk Carrie Lake event last Tuesday in the Phoenix area. I've been to a couple events previously. I've met, I've shaken hands with Carrie, had the opportunity to meet Ted Cruz. wanting to see boots on the ground. And what's happening here is it is a tsunami. Don't let anyone tell you differently. It's going to be a tsunami. Arizona's going to go bright red. Something happened that I see. I always like to bring up little secrets from the inside, and this is public knowledge, but I think a big event happened earlier this week that is going to, I'm not going to say guarantee Blake Masters wins the Senate seat. This Blake Masters race is huge, Mike. This is technically the deciding vote in the Senate, if you look at it that way. And this astronaut, Mark Kelly, has been an awful senator. Anyhow, something happened this week where you might have heard. The Libertarian candidate, Mark Victor, you know, we always have a mandatory Libertarian or Greenie or whatever in the race, and he was carrying about 4%.
Yeah.
Of just, you know, and again, it might have been a little too late, but he withdrew from the race and he wholeheartedly endorsed Blake Masters. And it might have been a little too late because there's already early voting. But my sense is, if it pulls 1-2%, then that's going to be the difference in Masters winning. So I do think even Blake's going to win. Hopefully later in the show we can talk about some of the other states. But Arizona is, you talked about Carrie Lake, you know, I've called it the punchy in the nose factor. She'll just tell it like it is. And I've watched her work the press. I've watched her and been in a few of those press conferences. I'm just going to say, people don't talk about this a lot, but Carrie Lake is so feisty, and you have the same trait in the Ron DeSantis's of the world, and a number of the others. I call it the punchy in the nose trait. Just to make it clear, Donald Trump, the 45th president, and he'll be 45, 47, by the way. He'll have two numbers, 45, 47. Donald Trump brung everybody to the dance. He brung everybody to the dance in 2015 when he showed everybody, and I mean the world, that you could punch the media in the nose and still be alive and actually have incredible support. The people that the Trump Republicans of the United States that Joe Biden trashes personally, Mike, there's between 75 million and 100 million of us. You know, 75 million voted last time, and that's trashing a whole lot of people. So I think the wave's going to come back starting in Arizona. But as I say, people forget Ron DeSantis shouldn't have been governor of Florida. They don't realize that. He was a number of points behind the Democrat candidate in 2016, and until Trump came down. Trump single-handedly, Donald Trump, parachuted in and helped get Ron DeSantis elected. And DeSantis will never forget that. DeSantis is not even a governor without Donald Trump. So people are remembering, I think this is why, of course, he'll run in 2024, and of course he'll win in 2024, Trump will. But I think there's a much broader support for just, say, the Trump and MAGA movement, just in general, than anyone, including the current president of the United States, will ever appreciate and will ever respect. And they all know that Trump brung us all to the dance. He showed that you could speak up at whatever style you want to use, and really not have to worry about the thought police or the language police, like so many people out there cower. Everybody cowers now, worrying about the thought police and the language police and the PC people, Mike.
It was actually really funny watching Trump with people like Jake Tapper and Jim Acosta, where he would just tell them, yeah, because you think
it was entertainment.
It was entertaining.
He's a three-ring circus, and he's the master of ceremony, and it was entertaining, and it entertains me, but also taught me a lot, and also allowed me to witness what 6 years. It's really been 6 years, or considering back to 2015, 2016. That we've been able to witness. Remember, we had to see these years, witness truly what the mainstream media is, truly what deep state Democrats are, truly what globalism and honestly, yes, cheating and fraud in elections is all about. We needed to witness it, but no, the people down here don't forget that Trump brung everybody to the dance, Mike.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I've got my criticisms of Trump. I do. I really do.
Sure.
Just like anybody else. But
sure.
I got to say, what the biggest thing that happened out of Trump for me was I realized, geopolitically speaking, how naive I was as to how things actually run. Because I thought, like, when he said to Hillary, because you'd be in jail, and the whole lock her up thing. I was expecting that. I really was. I was expecting her to be on TV in shackles, wearing an orange jumpsuit, being huddled off to a penitentiary and hearings and the whole bit. But that didn't happen, right? And whether that's Trump's fault or he was some kind of a plant or not, whatever. Let's just not even go.
Right.
But it was a real eye opener to me as to how hard the media and the bureaucracy and everybody, and I mean with the whole Russia thing and with the Ukraine phone call, right? I remember Trump at the UN telling the EU, you are going to be beholden to Russia for oil and gas, and you're going to get in trouble here because you haven't made deals outside. And they laughed at him, and look at what's happening in the Ukraine right now.
Right. I don't think Trump... if you ask Trump privately, and if you really looked at it, I bet you he, and I know and it sounds like you based on what you've just reiterated here, had no idea how deep the deep state was, and had no idea, absolutely, that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the quote conspiracy theories, blah, 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 that were labeled upon us came true. Trump has been right about way more stuff than he's been wrong. And Trump will also be proven right, Mike. I'm telling you, 2023 is going to be a big year of redemption. I'm telling you, with these committee investigations that are coming out. We've talked about this a lot. They're going to the Democrats are going to be taken to task. They're going to be called, subpoenaed before committees. Will things turn out the way, from a justice standpoint and true standpoint, like we'd wish? I hope so, and I think so. But things like, for example, they're really looking at that FBI right now, Mike. There's a committee ready to go about the cover-up of that Hunter Biden laptop before the election, the 2020 election. And so, as I've said before, unabashedly said the headline should have been, 2020 Democrats collude with the FBI and social media to fix and or alter, sway the 2020 election, period. So here we go. I hope it is justice and redemption starting in 2020, Mike. I really do.
What if it's a thing where they know that this can't be stopped, and they would rather actually just blow the whole thing up and bring it down than allow themselves to be investigated? I mean, you've got this situation with the diesel fuel they're talking about. You've got economic considerations with the Federal Reserve and the interest rates. You've got, and that's why I get annoyed when I look at news and everybody's talking about Paul Pelosi and his underwear and the hammer attack and all that. And it's like, you do realize that things like that actually happen every single day in every city in North America and the EU and Africa. That stuff happens all the time. And
that's right.
While you're so busy, gloating about how right you are about how corrupt Paul Pelosi and Nancy are, there's probably guys being trained for the next thing that you're not looking at. And you know what? We got to go to a network break. Why don't you hang around for the rest of the show?
Oh, that'd be great, Mike. Got a lot to cover. And this has been great. This has been great stuff. This is edgy stuff. Here we go.
Here we go.
That's my favorite expression.
James Wilson, Something Happens, featuring David Jennings and Court Chavez. Americanuck Radio going into the network break for Mojo 50 and WBN 324, and stick around for hour 2. And give me some comments here, everybody, if you want to weigh in on the situation. If you're in the Americanuck Radio rebooted chat room on MeWe, which you can get to through americanuckradio.com, or if you are on the Rumble chat, we want to hear from you. Let's go to our network break, and we'll be back with more Dueling-Citizens with Greg Meakin right after this, and that's how it is.
High-five somebody and tell them something happened when I call their name. Hey. Something happens when I call your name. 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 Something happens when I call Come on, baby. Mountains move when I call your name. Mountains move when I call your name. Mountains move when I call your name. Something happens. Mountains move when I call your name. All it takes is a little faith. Mountains move when I call your name. Something happens. Everybody clap your hands. Come on, grab you a praise partner and say, neighbor, today's the day my mountains gonna move. Shake on loose when I call your name. Shake on loose when I call your name. Shake on loose when I call your name. Something happens when I call your name. Shake on loose when I call your name. Shake on loose when I call your name. They call out for me. Shake on loose when I call your name. Something happens. Everybody there. Somebody call the name of Jesus. I'm gonna get my breakthrough. We break through. Something happens. We break through. I'm gonna have it. We break through. I'm gonna cry. Yeah, yeah. In the name of Jesus. Something happens. Mountains move. Chains are loose. We break through. We break through. Something happens. Mountains move. Going back into hour 2 of Americanuck Radio if you're watching on Rumble. Doesn't that sound like fun church, huh? Yeah. It's Friday, everybody.
It's Friday, man. It's Friday, man.
It's Friday. Matthew Willis says, I think Greg's right, and you too, Mike. This is a reckoning that needed to happen. Well, we'll read it when the show starts. We're live in about 1 minute here. But thank you.
There's a godly kid right there, Matthew Willis. There's a nice gentleman right there, Mike.
Matthew started listening to Americanuck Radio, and he has had just some wonderful things happen in his life that God has done for him. And that's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Religiosity will do nothing for anybody. If you're actually an honest, repentant heart, that changes will happen in your life. You will change. And
that's right.
It's fact. And Matthew's a fantastic example of that. Keep moving forward, Matthew, and Todd, and Mike, and the rest of you. And God will do it for you. Oh, fantastic. We have people trying to sell herbal supplements on my chat room here. That's wonderful.
Don't you love that?
I just think it's great.
As soon as you're public with anything nowadays, you do get so spammed.
Here we go. Ready?
Yep.
With great mojo comes great responsibility. Mojo 50.
And crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Americanuck Radio. News, opinion, and a little irreverence from both sides of the 49th parallel. This is Americanuck Radio with Mike Phillip.
Hour 2 of Americanuck Radio on Mojo 50. I'm Mike Phillip. We are live on WBM 324 across the pond in London, England, and online. Spreaker, about 60 different podcasts, platforms carry the show. And, we during the network break there, we started talking a little bit about Matthew and different people. And that's another thing people need to realize is that, like I said earlier, when you face difficult times, that's what actually shows you what you're made of and what your true self is and what you'll do in the face of difficulty. And so for me, if God had not called me to do what I'm doing, Matthew would still be where he was. Peyton would still be where he was. Todd would still be where he was. So, I mean, in that aspect, I'm very thankful that things did happen the way that they did. But I want to read everybody a comment here from Matthew. It says, I think Greg is right, and you too, Mike. It's a reckoning that needed to happen. God is asking, choose this day, life or death. Sadly, in the U.S., we're seeing political violence like never before. This really is in God's hands now. Just today, a Republican candidate had a drive-by shooting at his home, almost killing his kids. Seems we're on a path towards more chaos no matter what. Carrie Lake actually just said, if she died, outbreaks were cut. Look towards Hillary. Breaks were cut. Okay, so Carrie Lake is now saying it. If anything, I'm not suicidal. And like the thing for me is that I was screaming about this stuff a long time ago when people did not see it coming, like a long time ago. And I think I kind of burned out on it. And I got this attitude, right or wrong. It's what happened to me, where it's like, fine, just go ahead, do what you're going to do. Run off the cliff. I don't care anymore. Because, I would tell people here in Alberta, just because you have oil and gas under your feet does not mean that the money is going to be flowing forever. That can be taken away from you. And they would laugh at me and say things like, that'll never happen, you idiot. And I just got an attitude, Greg, where it was like, yeah, well, fine, go ahead. I hope that... I hope it works out for you. And maybe that's a kind of a vain pride thing on my that was in me. But no, I was there. Like I said, the eye-opening with Ron Paul in the days when he was running. I thought if you just audited the Federal Reserve and brought the troops home, it'd all be taken care of. So, yeah, I was ignorant of a few things too. But, yeah, the violence is... it is happening. It's moving ahead. Like, look at this race with Lee Zeldin in New York and Kathy Hochul. It's funny when they talk about Kathy Hochul getting elected, or I heard a pundit the other day say that she's running for re-election. How quick we forget. Kathy Hochul was never elected for anything. She's only sitting there because Cuomo was so horribly corrupt, and nobody's even talking about him anymore. But I mean, that guy should be up on charges too. But here we are looking at Kathy Hochul, like the big head fake. Hey, it keeps going.
Well, we shake our heads, Mike. We remember the long chat we had about Fetterman a few weeks ago.
Fetterman, yeah, Fetterman. It's like if I started this show by saying good night, everybody. That guy. It's
look at this
amazing to
Hochul.
me that they're actually holding him up as a considerable viable candidate. I mean, if that guy showed up to sell you something at your front door, you would think, "Oh, you poor fella. Maybe I'll buy one of your brownies just to help you out, you poor weirdo."
Again, it's not that these candidates are running. It's that millions of people are going to vote for them. This Hochul, I watched every moment of the New York debate with Zeldin because I'd like to know for myself.
Yeah.
And you learn so much from debates, Mike. Don't tell anyone differently. And this Hochul is just an awful candidate. And you're right, she's never been elected to anything. And if anyone, including my wonderful friends in the Democrat Party who might support the Hochuls or the Fettermans of the world, these are a bunch of loser candidates, Mike. I'm telling you.
It's
don't,
weird,
what
man.
is it? I said, don't, if Republicans or independents choose not to vote for one of your loser Democrat candidates, don't call us, election deniers or threatening your democracy. Come on, these are loser candidates. They got a loser platform. They can't stand up for their ideas. They're not showing up for debates like down here in Arizona. There's some of the worst candidates that I've ever seen in my life out there, Mike. And the only question mark I have is how so many people have bought into it and are going to vote for them. Literally drinking the Kool-Aid.
That's the biggest. That is the biggest eye opener. Not even so much them, but that there's so many people that would actually take that seriously. That's the weird,
Correct.
like Stacey Abrams, Gretchen Whitmer, Hochul, Fetterman. Like, wow. And you know what? I am not even really a fan of Dr. Oz. I never have been. I thought he was a clown. Like, you remember when he was getting a colonoscopy on live TV?
Oh, sure.
And I don't even consider him to be a serious candidate. But I mean, he looks like a genius next to grapefruit there.
I just take a step back, Mike. I take a step back. I said this on the last show that we were dueling citizens, but is when it comes to the Pennsylvania race, just like the old Wendy's hamburger marketing commercials, hamburger A or hamburger B. Hamburger A is Fetterman. Hamburger B is Dr. Oz. Which do you want? The garbage hamburger or the good hamburger? And no matter what, anyone with any logic, I would think, has got to say Oz would at least be a better, more competent senator, period. Disagree with his ideas, fine. But, or at least don't vote. At least don't vote. If you can't vote for Oz, please don't vote. Because this Fetterman, this is, people talk about a danger to democracy. Talk about getting some of these candidates in. This is absolutely outrageous. The level of incompetence and inability even to create positions and defend their positions, Mike.
Yeah.
So here we go. I really hope that this phase, this era is over with these loser candidates. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, Rachel Levine. I could go on. I mean, it's such Pritzker in Illinois. Wow. Wow, it's amazing.
And we haven't even talked to cabinet ministers. I mean, these secretaries of these agencies that have been in front of the panels, that little Treasury Secretary, what's her name, Yellen or whatever, they're just, and the FBI, and Ray, the FBI director, and all these people, they don't have any answers for anything. Mayorkas is going to get impeached. You watch this in 2023. But enough is enough. Not just these people being in positions, but that half the folks believe them and have bought into it. So there you go.
It's like mass delusion. Hey, I just thought of another one. The vice president there. Like what?
Oh my God!
You couldn't find a less serious person to do anything than Kamala Harris. Like you just couldn't. It's almost. Let me just say this, Greg. It's almost like it's designed to come to a head where people are willing
Yeah.
to go toe to toe over it. It's almost like that's the you know.
There's only one conclusion I've come to, and again, it's speculation. There's only one conclusion I've come to is they want this to happen. They want for the implosion of the economy and our standing globally to deteriorate. That's the only answer I have, and if it is, it's called New Age movement, globalism. You want to bring the U.S. down to its knees a little bit, and I don't think that's a reach at all, Mike, because that's the only way I can explain that. I've taken a step back and say, wait a minute. You mean you're allowing 5 million? It's going to be crowding 6 million people any minute here on our southern border. You still have people left in Afghanistan that you really committed treason against by leaving them there. You still have people in jail and solitary confinement from January 6th. On and on and on, right, Mike? Hey, I got an idea. Let's shut down our energy industry down here. Joe Biden pulled in Ottawa in wanting to shut down Alberta and Western oil. And I'm saying the only reason this could be happening is you guys want, because you have to be noticing it. You got to notice who your vice president is, and she's a loser when it comes to dealing with American issues. You notice it. I think they notice it. And if there's anything that I would speculate, it's that they're trying to. I can't believe I'm saying that, but they're trying to, for some way, some reason, somehow, to kind of bring the U.S. to its knees, to take hold of it. And that sounds like a conspiracy theory. There's been a lot of those conspiracy theories in the past that have been proven to be 100% right.
You know what the best thing about you is, Greg?
What?
I just get you talking and put your picture on the screen, and I can walk out of the studio and pour a coffee and come back, and you're still going. That's what I like about Fridays, because I'm not just sitting here by myself talking. But
why do you do that? We could have a little cue that Mikey needs to go for a coffee or maybe a bathroom break, and I'll do a mandatory Greg Meakin 8-minute monologue, right?
That's what commercials are for, man. That's what commercials are for. But yeah, okay, and now let's talk about the Freedom Convoy. You've been watching with Tamara Litch. Tamara is somebody also that I was loosely involved with the Alberta USA thing, because she was a proponent of that as well. Yeah. She was involved with Wexit, which was started by Peter Downing, a man that attends my church and calls me pastor.
Sure.
And so Tamara Litch is somebody that has been kind of on the outside of this for a long, on the edge of this for a long time, and now here she is in the national spotlight. Also, Chris Barber, who has been in the news right now. I went to high school with him in Saskatchewan a very long time ago. Actually, junior high. I knew him back then. It's weird. All my life, I've attracted these sorts of people that I've been around, but forever, for my whole life. And so I also know those guys that are involved with Diagolon, and that's the most comical aspect and non-serious, incompetent, stupid part. Like those when those guys at what everybody knows as this international galactic terrorist organization called Diagolon now. Well, they used to be the Plaid Army, and Jeremy Mackenzie, who's a Canadian military vet, had this little statue of a goat that he called it Philip, right? And Philip was addicted to cocaine and a time traveler. And I see in the hearings on the convoy that they're actually bringing up Philip, the cocaine addicted time traveling goat. This is the talk in a hearing over whether or not to invoke the Emergencies Act. And now they have let's be real here, Jeremy. He's my friend. I love the guy, and I'm loyal to my friends, but he made a stupid move. He opened his mouth and said some things that was dumb. That was really dumb, especially with all the attention he was getting right now. That being said, we were talking before all of this happened, and he got chucked in jail, and he said, Mike, everything that we've done and all the outrage and attention that we've gotten over it, he said, when they really freaked out, like when CSIS started investigating us, when we started seeing vans outside of the house and things like that, and we, they were coming to the door and giving us their card, It was when I created this diagolon meme, which took about 12 seconds on my phone. It was just a black flag with a white diagonal stripe. But he said, I figured it out. We were drawing attention to the separation of the western provinces from the rest of Canada, because that's what diagolon was. It was a white line from Alaska to Texas, cutting the U.S. and Canada diagonally in half. And he said, that's the only thing that I can think as to why they freaked out the way that they did. And now here we are with the Canadian Parliament going up and testifying on Philip, the cocaine-addicted, time-traveling goat. And it's the I've never seen anything this stupid in my life at the official level.
Oh, isn't it incredible? Boy, the Philip the goat, that sounds like what they used to get through the FISA courts to get surveillance on Trump, doesn't it? That kind of evidence, you know?
It's that bad,
Isn't it insane? And it sounds funny because Jeremy's still in jail. That still blows me away. And I'll bet you Tamara, I'll bet you her, at least even the affiliation or tipping her toes in the water of Alberta 51 didn't help her, Mike. I'll bet you.
No, they actually, they tried to use that against her as well. And the thing about Jeremy, Jeremy is in jail, it has nothing to do with any of this. There was somebody that was a fan of theirs that met up with him in Saskatchewan, and a bunch of their other regular viewers on YouTube or DLive or wherever it was, that was chasing a skirt, basically, that didn't want him anything to do with him. And this chick was, the way it was described to me, she was the local bicycle. But he got his nose out of joint, turned on them, and started making false accusations, to which they have several witnesses were not allowed to be brought forward. And so the charges on Jeremy were actually trumped up in the first place, and don't even really hold any water. But it doesn't matter because he's sitting in jail. And I actually tried to, I called Derek yesterday, and we were talking just to see how he was doing. And so it turns out that Jeremy is in a cell where he's only let out for 15 minutes a day over a minor assault charge, that there's evidence that he didn't even isn't even guilty of it, but they're just throwing everything they can at these guys. And really the whole thing about it for dragging it in was because at the Coots border, they claimed to have found a diagolon patch on some gear with some guns that they found and I mean, that'd be like if somebody went onto Americanuckradio.com and bought an Americanuck Radio T-shirt. I would have no idea who they are. And let's say the government found it at a crime scene and said, "Oh, this is evidence right here that Mike Phillip caused this to happen." It's the same situation, Greg.
This era, Mike, of planting evidence, trumped up, if not made up charges. Can we say impeachment phone calls?
Bearing false witness. Let's put it that way.
Yep, and kangaroo courts. The January 6th, this entire charade of January 6th committee is there's no rebuttal. That's right in the Constitution. Last I looked, that you need to have the rebuttal in the jury of your peers, right? I mean, they're just breaking all these rules of the Constitution, and it has got to stop, Mike. It has got to stop. And may the voters of Alberta and the voters down here in the States in 2022 and 2024 will they make the difference? They need to make the difference here, because this nonsense has got to stop. This is political prisoners. You talk about Jeremy or Tamara, and the list goes on. January 6th. These are political prisoners. This is for third world countries, Mike. Third world countries.
Yeah, but it's worse than that, because it's worse because you expect it from them, right?
Sure,
and
exactly.
We've always not expected that here. We've always expected a certain level of incompetence, but not quite at this level, right?
Yep.
And I mean, you know what? Maybe, like, okay, with what you just said, You can't trust anything in the judiciary. You can't trust anything in
Right.
Congress. You can't trust anything
Right.
in the executive branch at this moment. You can't trust the electoral system. You can't trust law enforcement. You can't. Maybe it all needs to actually just get wiped out and, like, shaking the Etch-a-Sketch
Implode.
and start over again.
Right.
I'd be cool with that.
I think I think there can be an element of that without a full implosion. And I think the element is, I always say, great corporations, great ideas, it all starts at the top. So it starts with who's in the White House. It really does. It starts with who's in the White House. And we watched, seriously, this is one of the few things that just allows me to kind of cope with this, is we saw Donald Trump take an executive, quote, CEO approach to the country for the first two years of his term. And we saw record after record after record, everything from, the laundry list of energy independence and low gas prices and record trade and all that stuff. So I think and I hope and I would pray that we could at least have a real house cleaning.
Right.
A real house, maybe give a good, maybe not an implosion, but give the country a good scrubbing. And I would hope it could happen that way because the workings are there in the foundational papers. That the Constitution, everything. It gives us the workings.
Yeah.
It gives us the workings to kick out loser politicians, which you're going to see.
Right.
I had forgot in 1980 with Reagan. Reagan not only had a landslide, people remember he won 49 states after the Carter years. This is so similar, so similar to the Biden years. But what people don't realize with Reagan, number one, he had a slew of complete Democrats and independents. But way back then, people had no idea that this guy could literally, think about this, any Democrat who was in power at that time literally got wiped off the map as far as their careers because the jig was up after the Carter years. You know what I mean? And they literally had a house cleaning. Reagan had a bigger house cleaning than people will know. And I hope the same thing can happen in 2024, Mike. I really do.
When I was a kid in the Reagan years, my grandmother was a big-time Democrat supporter.
Sure.
On the Indiana side of what you would consider Chicagoland, right? And
right.
I wish I still had this, Greg, because I had a campaign button that she gave me that said Ronald Reagan, like Reagan, but Ray gun is hazardous to your health. I wish I had this to this day. That might be a really cool little piece of history from that time. But yeah, that's the thing. Even Democrats are quite upset about this. I see Bill Maher and people like him coming out and saying, look, you guys are the biggest bunch of idiots. It's almost like you're planning to lose with the things that you're running on because these are things that Americans don't care about and never have and have never voted on. Like, seriously, we're going to vote on men being able to join women's water sports and things like that. You know what I mean? They're so stuck in that. It's really weird.
Until they get out of it, until they get out of that crazy ideology, because Maher will be the first to tell you. And guys like Jon Stewart, they can't believe how far left their party's gone. And it happens, Mike. Parties swing too far left or too far right, although this is nothing I've ever seen, and nothing I don't think Bill Maher has ever seen it. You've never seen it this last 2 or 3 years, this insanity. So if that's called too far left and we make an adjustment, there we go. I hope it's that. I hope it's not a permanent stain on our culture of what we've seen in these last 5 years. I really do. I really hope it's not a permanent stain on our culture. Well, and
this is literally what happened to Germany.
Exactly.
We played, and like, because when they say we're worried about Nazis taking over and this and that, well, like, you're literally setting up a situation for it to swing too far the other way because that's what happened. There's a documentary called Sin City. What's the town in Germany there? What's their biggest city? I can't remember the name of it. Berlin. Sin City, Berlin. And they got into how Germany went down this road so far where they were. You know what? We got to go to a commercial break. Let's pick this up on the other side because it actually does mirror the situation that paved the way for Hitler to get in Germany. And a lot of conservatives aren't going to like that I said that, but it's a fact. That is what happened.
Oh, yeah.
And there's my automated commercial break. Thanks for reminding me. And so, all right, let's go to the commercial break, and then let's get into this on the other side because it needs to be talked about.
Oh, yeah.
Back after this, last segment of Americanuck Radio, Dueling-Citizens Friday. Still going to have 9th Hour Prayer on Rumble after, so stick around for that. And if anybody wants my message for Sunday, hit the contact button at Americanuckradio.com. We'll be recording from church, and I'll send it to you. Back after this.
You want to wake up refreshed, like you slept on a cloud? Get yourself the very best in bedding supplies today. You deserve it. Go to MyPillow.com. And don't forget our very special promo code, Mojo50, for incredible savings.
At Meakin Designs, we're more than just a laser engraving and specialty design company. Much more. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Meakin Designs. And if you can dream it, we can probably make it. We can custom laser cut and engrave on nearly all material. Great for one-of-a-kind gifts, home decor, business and specialty items, or personalized and logo designs created just for you or your company. Allow us to become your go-to gift and specialty project partner. Meakin Designs can help make your ideas a reality. We're ready to help you design and create that special gift for any occasion or engrave your personal or business logo on just about any product. View our designs at romikadesigns.com or simply email us with your ideas. We specialize in custom design and would be honored to have the opportunity to discuss it with you. Call us at 817-400-4040, email info@romikadesigns.com, or visit us on the web at romikadesigns.com.
5 major food distributors have suffered explosions at food processing and storage facilities in the last few months. 20 more facilities have been destroyed by fires over the last 4 months. War in Ukraine drags on and holds the looming threat of nuclear escalation. U.S. inflation is officially reported above 8%. Mobs of people are whipped into frenzy by an increasingly unstable class of political elites. We live in interesting times. Political, economic, and financial collapse are all very real threats to our way of life. If the worst happens, make sure you and your loved ones are prepared with emergency food and supplies from preparewithmojo50.com. That's preparewithmojo50.com. Coffee lovers everywhere now have the opportunity to do their part to save the planet with Al Gore's lab-grown coffee substitute. We, here at Coffee Drinkers for Climate Change, believe this is a terrible idea. While man-bun-wearing, soy latte-loving poodle walkers everywhere are in love with the eco-friendly lab-grown sadness water, Coffee Drinkers for Climate Change want to see the sea levels rise, and for New York City to join the lost city of Atlantis, 12,000 leagues beneath the sea.
American Pride Roasters, historically great coffee. Every pot brewed is an eco-disaster 100 times greater than the Fukushima extinction-level event. So order yours today and do your part to hasten the end of the planet. You don't want to live forever, do you? AmericanPrideRoasters.com. That's AmericanPrideRoasters.com.
How dare you?
We dare. We dare.
Flat Earth, the moon landing, JFK, 5G, Biden won the election. Hey, lovelies, does anyone have any new conspiracy theories? Because all the ones I know are contrary. Join me, Ria Bow, here on Sunday Long Live Radio, live every Sunday of the year, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard, 10 a.m. UK, and 9 p.m. New South Wales. I'll see you Sunday.
Americanuck Radio.
I would say the world's most underrated radio shows. Americanuck Radio. This guy, Mike Phillip, is brilliant. I listen to him every day. Love your show. I really do. I'm a huge fan. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Americanuck Radio.
Well, Well, God loves the outlaw, but he doesn't love the sin. Just open up your heart to Jesus and he'll surely let you in.
Americanuck Radio.
Well, God loves the outlaw.
Last segment, hour 2 of Americanuck Radio. Before the break, we were talking about the situation in Germany and what led up to Hitler getting in power. And so, I mean, a while back, we did a show on this Roman goddess, or this pagan goddess that they called Liberty. In fact, the Statue of Liberty was fashioned after this, and Liberty, or Libertad, which you see symbology all around you of, is that liberty to explore any kind of deviant flesh desire that you have. And when that thing comes along, you're going to have all kinds of disgusting things happening, like we see today. And Germany actually went down that road. We played that documentary on the show where they like in Berlin, there was people all over the world coming there as a sex tourism spot, where every depraved, disgusting thing that you could, your heart would desire, was on display and for sale in Germany. They showed blocks where you could, they would line up women that were 3, 6, or 9 months pregnant that men, depending on their fetish, could pick up for money. And then what happened was the economy crashed. You had the Weimar Republic. You had people with, they would get paid and run to the store with a wheelbarrow full of francs to buy bread, because in between the time that you got paid and the time that you got to the store, the inflation went up so fast that it was literally 15 minutes that you had to spend your money, because it would be worth like half of what it was even during the trip from the time that you got paid. And so you had this just sick, decrepit, deranged society that would, anything goes, right? We're seeing that today in America. We're seeing that in Canada. It's going that way. And people got so tired of it that the pendulum swung so far to the other side that it resulted in Hitler, and Cologne was destroyed. Berlin was reduced to rubble. And so, like, I mean, maybe this is just history repeating itself with the same thing, and they seem hell-bent on it. And I have no doubt in my mind, Greg, we saw that violence with Antifa and Black Lives Matter.
Oh, yeah.
For those years. Well, they've been kind of silent for a while, but I guarantee you that they are being trained and armed and waiting for whatever comes along next. And so while you're all looking at Paul Pelosi and the underwear hammer games over there, there's something else being set up. I don't know what that is exactly. I'm going to keep winning souls and being a fisher of men no matter what happens, but that's what I see. I see a duplication of what happened in Germany and has happened over and over again. It happened to the Greeks. It happened in Rome, where they reached a point where they and things just fell apart. And I mean, how can it not fall apart when you have a Hochul or a Fetterman or a Kamala Harris or a Joe Biden in charge? I mean, or, you know, the kids being taught about sodomy in schools and like every disgusting thing that God has specifically said, if you do this, you will die. And they have no fear of God. Maybe they're going to be taught it. I don't know. Greg, your thoughts?
When 2 and 2 equals 5, when right is wrong and wrong is right, like you're talking about. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's all of those empires that fell, quote, were predated by that. Right is wrong, wrong is right, etc.
Yep.
And I think that's what we're sitting in the middle of right now. I really do. And I really do. I've been reiterating this, but I think there is going to be a swing back, because it is just too reprehensible for the rest of the country to be watching all of this happen in front of us. When I hear, as you know, the talking points down here are the threat to democracy, right? If you vote Republican, you're a threat to democracy. Threat to democracy. January 6th. And the best I remember, boy, when Donald Trump was elected, do we not remember in 2016, our cities almost burned because Donald Trump was elected?
Yeah,
people forget about those riots. Those riots. Come on, man.
That'll be back. I think it'll be worse if there's a what we call a red wave.
Yeah. Sure. There'll be two things. Look out for, as you say, political violence, which happened, as you say, during the George Floyd riots and the Donald Trump election. There were riots, and so if that's not a threat to democracy or violent, political extremism. I don't know what it is. You just watch, though. This last talking points, Mike, has been election denialism. Right, that came right out of the DNC. Election deniers. And just watch. Starting on Wednesday, Mike, write it down. Mark it on your calendar. Starting Wednesday after the election, the midterms. Let's see the election deniers on the Democrat side. I hope we don't hear about any of them, right? The Stacey Abrams or anyone else, because they sure have been pointing the fingers the other way.
Yeah. So here's what we'll see happen with that. They'll get very constitutional. They'll all of a sudden be very, very aware of the separation of powers and a president can't just, you know what I mean? You can't, you know what I mean? That's what we'll see with them. They'll all of a sudden become very vocal and aware of how the country was set up so that nobody can concentrate power, and they'll wrangle and they'll just screw it up however they can. And I really think that they're like with Joe Biden coming out the other night with that little speech that he made. I think
it was awful.
It was awful, but I think it was a warning. If you do this, then we are going to pull the plug on certain things, and chaos will ensue. Not that that's something that you should base your decisions on, but it was. Sure. You know what I mean? I think there was more being said than, because there are multiple flashpoints where you could actually set off an economic collapse or whatever the case might be, and blame it on your political opponent because not because we set the stage for it in the last 4 years or the last 20 years or the last 40 years, but now they're in office and see it's their fault, and I think a lot of voters are that dumb to go for it.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of trying to kick Democrats out of office and Biden out of office, before I forget, I wanted to bring up a point that down here in Arizona, this is kind of a little-known fact, there are thousands of dual citizens, Canadian dual citizens, I think the most are from Alberta, who are eligible to vote down here in Arizona. And there will be a bunch. Yeah, there'll be a bunch voting on Tuesday, and I just want to encourage people, if you were just thinking not to vote or to sit this one out, or just please consider it a gift to be a U.S. voter and get down to the polls on Tuesday, seriously. And the Kerry Lake votes, the Blake Master votes, because the country really is in limbo right now, Mike. It can go either way. It can go either way, depending on how these next two elections go.
You want to hear something cool?
Yeah.
I just opened up my Bible to Isaiah 66 because there was a verse I wanted to bring up, and I looked over at the chat room, and Chet in Alabama actually just quoted it, Isaiah 66:4. And literally, Chet, I opened it up to this right before you wrote that down. But listen to this, Greg. Lord, God said, I will choose their delusions and will bring their fear upon them, because when I called, none did answer. When I spake, they did not hear, but they did evil before my eyes and chose that in which I delighted not. And so, when we talk about how there's going to be no justice, there's going to be justice, all right. There's going to be justice, all right. And these are the things that bring his wrath on a nation. Sin is a reproach to a nation. And we've got to call it what it is, because that is what it is. And these guys.
Isn't that inspiring? That's inspiring to hear, Mike. That's inspiring to hear. Mm-hmm. My wife used to always say, she's a wonderful Pentecostal right out of Topeka, Kansas. She always used to say, if you have a question in life, go to the Word, go to the Word, go to the Word.
If your wife is a Pentecostal from Topeka, Kansas, there was a very famous move of the Holy Ghost with oneness believers in Acts 2:38, like I preach in Topeka. Has she ever mentioned that?
No.
Is she aware of
Cool. Oh, I don't know. She's not here. I'll have to ask her, though.
it? You
Let me
ask
know.
her
I'll bet
about
you she
that
is.
because there was a
I
massive,
will.
yeah, there was a real big move. It's actually very famous in U.S. Pentecostal circles, Azusa Street and Topeka, Kansas. It still gets talked about
Wow.
to this day. And so if that's where your wife
Wow.
is from,
Small world.
and yeah, that's something that she should look into, because I don't think that Topeka, Kansas is known for anything else really, except for maybe being dull and not talked about.
Right.
But there was a major move of God there in Topeka, Kansas.
Wow.
Yeah,
How cool is that? How cool is that?
very.
There's there's no
We got 15
there's so many
minutes left,
elections
Greg.
going on down. Oh yeah, you want to chat about the elections down here a little bit, the states, because I know there's been a lot of chat, man, with all these swing states, and just I don't know if folks up in Canada are following the midterms here coming up on Tuesday, but it is a zoo down here.
Everybody's
It is a
following.
zoo.
Look, what happens in the United States affects us, actually, I think,
Sure.
more than Ottawa,
Sure.
because the U.S. is like 85% of our GDP. If something
Sure,
happens
sure.
to the U.S. economy, that
Sure.
will affect us more than Ottawa prosecuting truck drivers for the Freedom Convoy or whatever. Because
Oh,
like
sure.
it's just like if things get shut off in the United States, it's like Pierre Elliott Trudeau once said, it's like a mouse sleeping next to an elephant.
Right.
Between Canada and the U.S. And if something happens to the U.S. or it gets sick, it affects us in a huge way in Canada. But I'll let you go on, Greg. I interrupted you. Go
No,
ahead.
no. So cool. This is Dueling Citizens. This is what we do, man. No, if folks in Alberta, if they're not watching Tuesday, I recommend that they watch Tuesday, because so goes the United States, and I say so goes Arizona, so goes Alberta. Because remember, Alberta is going to be the 51st state of the USA. And if that happens in politics down here, I say when that happens, politics down here is going to be much more personal and firsthand. Just everyone is talking now, Mike. Everyone's talking about I call them the Fab Four, these last four states that are really going to decide the U.S. Senate, and that's Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. We've all been talking about them, Pennsylvania with Oz and your buddy Fetterman, and talking about Georgia with Herschel Walker, and my calls on those. I think Republicans are going to take 3 out of 4 of those. I think Oz will win Pennsylvania. Blake Masters will win Arizona. Laxalt, the guy in Nevada, is going to win. And Georgia, real 50-50 on Herschel Walker. We won't know election night. I think that'll be a runoff. But what I'm looking at, and this is, Mark, kind of write this down a little bit, Mike. When I mentioned earlier about Reagan winning 49 states, one of those where people woke up the next day and said, what? There are some states that were never, I'm talking true blue states right now, that are way in play and are not being talked about enough. One being my Washington state, Seattle area, Mike.
Now it's yours.
Just Tiffany, you know the name Patty Murray. She's a 30-year fixture in the Senate. She's got her hands full with this Tiffany Smiley. And I've been asking all my boots-on-the-ground folks. They say Smiley can win. And I'll tell you what, I'll believe it when I see it, because Patty Murray has such a power base. But if Tiffany Smiley wins Washington, and it goes red, Mike, or at least purple, because of the other Cantwell, the other senator, look out. The rest of the country will go. The other states like New Hampshire, never be discussed, never be thought of as red, but this guy Bull Duke, I think, might even pull it off. People like the Gretchen Whitmers in Michigan, hands full with Tudor Dixon, and I actually believe, I think Tudor Dixon's going to win. You watch New York with Zeldin. That's huge. That's huge, Mike. And I think Zeldin's going to win. And I peeked at one this morning. I follow Trafalgar polls. I combine Trafalgar with Greg Meakin's gut, and I come up with my winners. Watch Colorado, believe it or not. No one's talking about Colorado. Trafalgar has them like a 1.5 difference. This O'Day guy is a Republican. Once again, you know Colorado. If Colorado goes red, now we're talking news here. So bottom line, I think the Republicans are going to do great on the Fab Four. They'll win at least 3 out of 4, and the rest of them, I think there'll be 1 or 2 of those sleepers that goes Republican. I think people's jaws will drop, Mike. Seriously, that's kind of my little wrap up of election 2022. But it's a biggie down here, Mike. It's a biggie.
Greg Meakin just transformed into Sean Hannity on American Radio. You know, I have a filler folder that actually has some really hilarious stuff that we used to do on the show all the time before I just started doing full-time ministry. And man, oh man, we had loads of stuff about Joe Biden, and I'm looking at it right now. We had all these real stable social justice warrior, real stable genius, clips of idiocracy. It's this huge folder that has a bunch of dust on it that I haven't touched in a long time, and I'm looking at it right now. I've got Darth Vader singing Happy Birthday. My producer just made this huge folder, and I don't know why I started thinking about that, but here, let's throw one of those on just for old time's sake here today on the show. The Biden to English dictionary.
Introducing the Joe Biden to English Dictionary, the book that translates the Democratic nominee.
COVID has taken this year. Look, here's the lives. I mean, think about it.
COVID-19 is bad.
Understanding a potential president is your constitutional right.
All men and women created. Go. You know the thing.
All men and women are created equal.
The Biden to English Dictionary knows Joe's thoughts on everything from technology.
Make sure you have the record player on at night.
To breakfast requests.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
I'd like some cereal.
The Joe Biden to English Dictionary. Get your answers today.
You know, the rapidly rising I don't know.
I've lost my marbles.
See, now, it used to be funny when people didn't think it could happen. Now it's not funny anymore. It's just like
this is the president of the United States, Mike.
Awesome.
I feel like it's a Fetterman conversation, don't you? We always get back to Fetterman, but don't you? Listening to this Joe Biden, I just can't believe it. I can't believe it. Anyhow, that's another show, man. That's another show.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens on Tuesday. Either way, look, I mean, it's really this simple. If men do not repent, I can go to the book of Revelation. I can go to the book of Isaiah. I can go to the book of Hosea. I can go to all of them. If you do not repent and change your ways and clean your house, this wrath is going to come down on you. It's that simple. It's that simple.
That's right.
And I like to say this too. Let's say there's a big, the Republicans get back in, everything goes red, and the economy gets strong, there's jobs. Look, you're still going to have some decisions to make with your life. There's still going to be drug addiction. There's still going to be, you know what I mean? So, like, either way, Americanuck Radio doesn't change its stance on that, but it is something that we'll talk about every once in a while. So we've got about 7 minutes left in the show, Greg. We've talked about the election. We've talked about the situation in Alberta. We've talked about the Freedom Convoy. What's left?
Oh, man. Where do you want to start? There's a lot left.
There's a lot of stuff going on, right?
No, either way, no matter what. Remember, Fridays, Dueling Citizens. This is the time to relax, to kick back, to talk about these issues. We'll all move on after this and, get about our lives. But your message is what I love about this program, seriously, Mike, is not only our fun banter back and forth. And we're talking about cutting edge red meat issues. We don't talk about gossip stuff. We talk about really, really good stuff. But what's nice is no 2 episodes are the same. Sometimes lighter, sometimes more serious. But the bottom line is no 2 episodes are the same. And I've had amazing feedback. I really have, as far as people who just like listening to the conversation in the show, because it's just different. It's just different. You just, unfortunately, sadly, you simply can't hear the kind of stuff we talk about in the mainstream media. You know, one thing as a side note, I really encourage people to do. I have kind of a new YouTube channel. It's been up for a few months, but anyone in Alberta 51 or anyone who really likes this show, Mike, I don't know if you've peeked or not, but I roll out clips of not only this show but stuff that relates to Alberta 51. It's on my YouTube channel. It's just my name, you know, Greg Meakin. And please subscribe and like, because every day I've got stuff coming out. I've got produced some really nice clips from the Gordon Kessler show last week, a couple weeks ago, Mike. And so it's just been really, really fun either way. Episode number 17 of Dueling-Citizens, and it continues to be a blast for me. I don't mean to gush and coo like this, but it really is. It's a blast for me, and it's a blast for the people that listen too, Mike. I'm sure you're hearing the same thing on your end from your awesome listeners.
Well, sometimes I get people angry at me because they come here to hear a Bible study or get me preaching, and they get annoyed. But there's other ones that do like it when we divert off into these things. And
sure.
Coming up on Americanuck Radio, did Lee Harvey Oswald really pull the trigger? Did he really? I mean, and that's the other funny thing, too. There's stuff that used to be conspiracies, and there was this kind of tinfoil hat thing. But now all of a sudden, you've got like Megyn Kelly is all of a sudden speaking Alex Jones and going off about the globalists the conspiracy theory. Like, the internet needs another conspiracy talk show. Like, it needs a hole in its head. It's like everybody thinks they're Alex Jones now and wants to wake everybody up, and it's like, no, man, that's old news. You know, like you brought up. Go ahead.
You know, you go ahead, Mike.
Well, you brought up the Patriot Act, and it's like, yeah, okay. Well, how long has that been around? You know, like,
sure.
When I first joined Mojo, there was another host on the station, and it was the anniversary of 9/11. And most of the hosts over here, like, it was started by one of Glenn Beck's people, right? Doc Thompson. And he, as soon as I joined this station, like the same week, he went out jogging and got hit and killed by a train. Okay. So, but they were Glenn Beck people, and Glenn Beck was one of these guys that was this ultra conservative constitutionalist, but would not entertain any kind of talk of like 9/11 was an inside job or anything like that. And so when I joined this radio station, I went on another show, and I'll never forget this. This woman is not with the radio station anymore, but the host of it was on 9/11. And I said, I don't believe the official explanation behind that. I just don't.
Right.
And she was like shocked. She was just like, how can you say that? You know what I mean? Like, obviously it was Osama bin Laden. Well, now, people that were on the fringe, somewhat, I guess you could call it, now that's like the mainstream now. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's an expert on the Federal Reserve and 9/11, and you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. It's insane. The thing that I always question is, why do we have to wait 10, 20 years to find out what the truth was about something? You know, I remember a while back, I told my old friend, you know, Sheriff Mark Lamb, I'd chat about him a lot, but I'd ask him, you know, do you ever get tired? You know, as just a Republican, as a constitutionalist Republican, do you ever get tired of having been right about everything? I mean, you get it. You listen to this. It's so hysterical to hear the word election denialism. And you remember this quote, you remember this talking point, Mike. Hillary Clinton would be president had Donald Trump not colluded with Russia, right? And that turned out to be the biggest lie probably in the century in the United States. Why don't they call that the big lie, or that election denialism? So there we go. 2 and 2 equals 5 again, Mike. We'll see what happens, but as I hope both of you and I are, we're optimistic. I'm just to take my hands off the wheel, and God's in everything. He's in this, and He's in everything. So I'll cope in my ways, but it sure is going to be a blast watching the returns come out on Tuesday, Mike. It really will.
All of a sudden, Obama's everywhere, too. You notice that? Like, you didn't hear nothing from Obama, and all of a sudden, you've got Obama, who was like the Black Lives Matter president, all of a sudden showing a mentally handicapped white guy that grew up privileged.
Sure. What the press won't tell you, Mike, that's right. What the press won't tell you is Bill Clinton, who was a prolific campaigner, among other things, but he was a prolific campaigner. He was a real hard worker, as was Obama. These guys don't get out the vote. They don't have any influence. Neither of them historically have had any influence on who they're coming in town to help.
No, they have no
the one guy
anymore.
They really haven't. They're way overrated that way. The one guy that's magic is what, and 45-47. That's Donald Trump. He's magic that wherever he parachutes into, he increases the vote count for the Republican candidate. Fact. So there you go. There you go.
Thank you for listening to
Obama
Americanuck Radio, everybody. I hate to cut you off, Greg, but we're coming right to the end of the show here. We've got less than a minute of airtime on Mojo 50. Greg, thanks for coming on the show. It's always fun to talk about something a little bit different.
Awesome, man.
And
it's been great.
Monday, we get right back into it. Pastor Nathaniel Rios with the Jesus is My General Initiative, Rob Kogel, and Tyler